is the rewind episode. So this is something I'm trying to do once a month. Pick some kind of topic. Maybe it might be me by myself, like it is tonight. Maybe I'll have a group of people in here. Maybe I'll have a special guest. But this is the first episode. We tried doing this a couple years ago. We did a couple rewind shows, but I want to try to make it consistent. Do something once a month, where we're looking at older books in our collections. And this month's theme, of course, is Halloween, right? I mean, because it is spooky. So we're going to jump into the books that I read for this particular show, and I'm going to go over my top 5 Halloween movies. And it could be just a scary movie, could have a Halloween theme, whatever it is. But let's jump into the first book for the evening, and it is House 2, the second story. So this is actually, if anybody's seen House 2, it is far different than House. I mean, of course, yes, it has to do with the house, but this has a lot more comedy in it. The movie, I had to rewatch the movie again recently after I read this, just to kind of see how close this comic was to that movie, and it is actually pretty accurate to what the movie is. And it's not like a 4-part miniseries, which Marvel did with a lot of the movie kind of books. This actually is the whole story right here in one comic book. So this came out in 1987, and the cover price was $2. And story by Ralph Macchio and other artists and stuff like that. So basically, he just took the story from the movie and kind of adapted it to the comic book. Hold on one second, because I am live and somebody's knocking at my door. So that is the first book for the Halloween Rewind episode. Let me send a message real quick. So the second book that I read for this Halloween Rewind show was one of my favorite 80s horror icons, still pretty iconic to this day, and that is Elvira. She's had a couple different series that came out, but this is by DC. This is DC's Elvira's House of Mystery. So this came out in 1986 at a cover price of $1.50. 64 pages in this book. This had 12 issues in this run here. And number 1 actually had cover art by Brian Bolland, something like that. Yeah, right. So, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Elvira. I pick up the Funko Pops. I used to have a poster on my wall when I was a kid of her moonbathing, and I remember that poster very vividly. So let's go into the story. So this is kind of like Elvira is a classy lady. So this story is essentially Elvira's running from this mob. They're chasing her down because she's a witch or something along those lines. And so they chase her into this house. She locks the door behind her, and the mob's not wanting to chase her in. But she finds out soon that the house is kind of haunted, and the house starts telling her stories because she's hanging out there. So it has 3 different stories in here. The first one's called The Realm, and essentially it's like a D&D adventure story where this family comes over, and this guy's essentially the dungeon master, or they have a different name for him, and he's leading this party. And they start the story, and he's saying everybody's magical abilities have disappeared because they're in there. Until they complete this quest, they have no magic. The one little brother, apparently nobody likes, he gets turned into a gnome thief, and he absolutely hates it. And he hates being this gnome. He wants a new character, and they're saying, no, go with it, just play with it. And he has been getting killed relatively early on in the game, so therefore he's out of there. And so he decides to go ahead and take revenge against the other people who made fun of him, who killed him off early. And so he takes over as essentially the dungeon master and makes this real. And so the one guy gets killed in this game. And they find out that he's the one that's taken over, and they end up using a spell in this, which turns him back into a kid, which releases him of his powers, and therefore they can get out and escape the realm. Now, a story about this, we're talking about being killed relatively young or relatively soon into the game. My youngest son, who is now 17, when he was pretty little, we went to summer camp for scouts, and all the scouts would go to one tent, and they would play Dungeons and Dragons, and they would kill him off real soon just to get him out of the tent so he couldn't play anymore. Felt bad for him. That's what it kind of felt like here. But fortunately, my son did not go back and take revenge on his other fellow scouts. So that's good. I appreciate that. And it has a few other stories. One story is called Death Likes a Lullaby, where a guy kidnaps a girl and says he wants a ransom and he'll return the girl without being harmed. He got the money, but decided to bury the girl alive. And then he ends up leaving. Where does he go to? It says he goes to another country. Oh, no, he goes to Vegas, not another country. And he's seeing this girl's face everywhere he goes, on the dice, on the receiver, saying Rockabye, because that was a song that her parents used to sing to her when she was a little baby. So everywhere he sees Rockabye, he hears Rockabye, he sees her face everywhere, and then he ends up falling out the window and is seen by a little girl that's singing the Rockabye story, and she turns into a skull. So there's a whole bunch of, like, if you've ever seen the Elvira, Mistress of the Dark TV show, it's kind of the same thing. She's kind of in between these little stories, talking about it, talking to the house, and the house is saying, hey, here's another story. So that is one other story, two other stories in here. One is really freaking long and a lot of words. And so I'm like, oh, I passed by that one pretty quick. Plus, it was a kind of a topic that I wasn't really interested in. A lot of like Asian samurai, mystical wizards kind of stuff that I just kind of, you know what? I'm not interested in watching that or reading that. And then the last story is about some friends who want to make a horror movie and enter this contest. Again, there's one kid that nobody likes, and they make him the monster, and then they leave him out in the woods. He ends up coming back and taking revenge, but recording the whole thing essentially and winning the film festival contest. So, and then we find out that at the very end of the book, Elvira sees this box on the shelf, and she's going to turn the mob into a mob that loves her instead of a mob that hates her. And she throws it out. There's little rainbows, and they all signed up to get Elvira's autograph, and she decides she wants to stay in the house forever, and this place is her destiny. So that's essentially Elvira's House of Mystery #1. Again, big Elvira fan, and I'm glad I got a chance to sit there and actually read this. A lot of times I got a chance to sit there and read some of my old books, and that's kind of one reason why I wanted to do this show, was actually go back and read some of my older books that I do have. Let's talk about Midnight Suns #1. Midnight Suns Unlimited #1. This has same thing, quite a few stories in there. It has this was a 9-issue run or a miniseries that came out in 1993. Cover price of $3.95. 62 pages in here. It is actually a pretty dense book, which I was pretty shocked by. A lot of famous writers. You got Howard Mackey, Chris Cooper, D.G. Chester, Len Wein is in here. Artists such as Klaus Janson, Joe Quesada, Cynthia Martin. So a lot of stories in here. This is the typical 90s book. If you flip through it, if you look at, I think the first story is art by Klaus, and you can definitely tell it. Definitely 90s all together. The first story has Johnny Blaze. This one here came out in 1993. The other Elvira one came out in 86 or 87. So this first story has Johnny Blaze and has Danny Ketch. There's a beast that's gone amok in this town, a snowy little town, and it kills a boyfriend, girlfriend. And Johnny Blaze is there to kind of investigate what was going on, which I'm shocked that the police say, "Hey, you're Johnny Blaze. Sure, we'll tell you everything that's going on with our investigation because you have no connection at all." But they end up, then Danny Ketch shows up, Ghost Ridering it up, and he kind of draws attention to the police. He does his pen and stare on quite a few people that are in. Yeah, typical 90s means fun in your vernacular. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if you look at some of this art, definitely 90s stuff, 90s art. Danny Ketch does his pen and stare on quite a few of the bad guys and stuff in here, catching quite a few. And they're trying to track this beast down before it kills more people. Now, it's actually chasing Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch for a while until he sees some kids. And then we find out, let's see, does it get to the kids yet? Right before the beast attacks the kids, Danny Ketch and Blaze end up attacking it and stopping it. And they kind of defeat it, and it kind of runs off, and they chase it down. And with a little backstory here, they chase her down to this nursing home where this old lady is pretty much just, she sits in a wheelchair all day long, doesn't talk, doesn't do anything. And when Danny Ketch does his pen and stare, he realizes that this woman in this nursing home has a long history in this town of getting kids and then killing them, torturing them and killing them. And there was one time she was chasing one of the kids down the stairs. She lost her footing, fell, and essentially lost the ability to walk. Then she made a deal with the devil or demon to be able to walk again. But unfortunately, you know how that works. If you sign a deal with the demon or the devil, you don't get what you want. She actually came back as a beast, and that's the end of the story. And Danny Ketch does his pen and stare, and she screams no, and that's how the story ends. This other one from, who is the artist on this one? It's just a pure black and white story. A lot of, it's kind of crazy art in there. This was kind of interesting in a way. I was kind of like, oh, I don't like this, but then how it kind of explained, I think how it connects with the color dynamics of it. Just the black and white image. This guy's in prison. He's kind of afraid of the dark. He doesn't really want to be left in the dark, so he ends up killing himself. There was a Hitchcock episode that came out in the late 80s, I believe, that I remember very vividly, where there was a girl in prison and she was wanting to get out, so she made friends with essentially the grave digger that worked on the site. And she was supposed to go get let down in the coffin with one of the recently dead people, and he was supposed to come back and dig her up that night to release her. She had some matches. She ended up lighting the match and find out that the person she's in the coffin with is the person that's supposed to save her. I remember that creeping me the hell out. And that's what this kind of brought me a little bit, because a guy gets put in a coffin, he's screaming, no, no, no. I mean, he looks like he's dead, but all his mental faculties are all still there. So was kind of interesting. And I think they made a kind of a connection with the black and white story. Trying to find it here. It says, it's all in a place that darkness from light, where could it be? He saw everything in light and dark images, said another inmate, followed him, yet we know he only escaped. So that's what they're kind of going like that. Yeah, Ghost Rider, I think early Ghost Rider stuff I liked. I remember reading some of the, like, Midnight Suns, not Midnight Suns. It was a crossover between Punisher, Ghost Rider, and Wolverine that came out. It was like a trade square-bound book that I absolutely loved when I was a kid. And it has a couple other stories, Midnight Suns, as well as a Morbius story in here. So, and it's funny because here at the end of Morbius story, it's not the main character, but it's the father of one of the girls that Morbius had killed before he actually got the ability to kind of control some of his powers. And what's he say? He says it here. No, you're right. Blast it. So, Midnight Suns from 1993. Chamber of Chills. Number 21. This is a 25-cent cover. And this is kind of the same thing. It has multiple stories in this book. This came out in 1976. The writer is Mimi Gold and artist was Dick Ayers. So that's Chamber of Chills right there. Quite a few stories in here. The first one was probably the one that was most interesting. The middle one, Tidal Wave Fear, was one of those ones that was, oh my goodness, look at all of that reading. Now I know it's a comic book. We're supposed to be reading. We're supposed to be happy to read, but sometimes I feel a little overwhelmed when it's that much dialogue. So the first story is essentially about a robbery kind of gone wrong. Yeah, it was a pretty good book. It was J.R. Oh my goodness, why can't I think of his name? John Romita Jr. was the artist on that book, on that Punisher, Wolverine, and Ghost Rider crossover. So the first story is, I said, about a robbery gone wrong, where this guy ends up taking, what did he take? Did he take this money? I don't remember what he takes. He ends up taking something and shooting this guy in the process. And when another guy comes in, he yells, which I thought was really funky line, and I didn't understand why they did it. He says, "My God, you've killed him. You've killed Matt Wyatt." I'm like, most people will not sit there and yell first and last names when they're in the middle of somebody getting killed. Yeah, it was excessive. And then the guy who shot him, the burglar guy, the robber guy, ends up going into like an old school arcade, and he finds this machine. It's called you can pass the Slim Jims, the Temposcope. See the past and the future. So he puts his nickel in. He's kind of seeing the future. You can see how the panels kind of change. They're kind of not a square anymore. They're kind of a funky shape. That's what he's seeing in the Temposcope. And he keeps seeing things like the police are after him. He's running. They keep chasing him. And then he ends up falling out a window and essentially dying. And that's what happened in real life. He ended up falling out the window and dying. And then it goes back to, there's a couple police officers talking. And it says, "Hey, Elliot, how do you know we'd find him here?" And the one officer says, "I saw it all in the Nickelodeon, Sandy. Matt Wyatt was a brilliant inventor who died for nothing, but he left a fitting epitaph." So the guy he killed while the robbery was the same guy who created this Temposcope, which essentially caused this guy's death. So, it's one of those kind of like twists you see. And that's how the name Matt Wyatt at the first of the book was emphasized so much, I think. And then the other story is, besides the one with all the verbiage, called The Girl with the Eyes. This guy finds this medallion on this, I don't know if it's Jamaica. It says originally presented in Astonishing Tales number 63. Haiti. They're in Haiti. And he finds this medallion, and this lady says that it's so strange that you should find this ancient amulet, lost for centuries. It's written that who finds it shall keep it, and with it the power to see into the future. So he's kind of seeing in the future. He sees that he's going to kind of cheat on his partner with his wife and end up killing his partner. I mean, she's like this beautiful woman, and he's kind of conflicted about it, but he's seen in the future. And then he gets actually back home from vacation a little bit sooner before his partner does. And then his partner comes in and says, "Hey, this is Marcy. We met in Haiti. We're going to be married." And it's the same girl that he's been dreaming about and seeing in the future. And the last panel, this essentially looks at the audience, says, the amulet, the dream, the doctor, the old voodoo priestess. What should I believe? What would you believe? What would you do? So it kind of leaves up to you as a reader. Would you kill your partner to go with this hot girl? Or would you forego the uh, the future. And then the last one that I'm reading, this had quite a few stories in it too. This was a reprint of Journey into Mystery number 60 from 1971. The cover price of 25 cents. I couldn't find a page count. I said there I could have counted the page, but I didn't want to do that. It was a little bit too much for me to do. But this is a pretty thick book. It's just like a square bound book. This one's kind of falling apart, but still, it's a pretty cool book. A lot of old school, stories in there. The main one I want to talk about in this one is the last story. I'm going to flip to it real quick. And it is called, no, I Turned into a Martian. Okay. I created Krang, the most fantastic monster the world has ever known. So this, I laughed out loud at this. I thought this was funny as hell, especially the ending and how they resolve it. So essentially, this professor, he has these dreams. He's created this magic potion, this magic stuff to be able to take and make bugs bigger. And his plan is to make the bugs work for us. So he has caterpillars that can help us help us build. We have water bugs that help tow boats in. We could have flies that can replace airplanes. So like there's a couple of panels right there where he's talking about it, and the other professors and scientists are like laughing at him, saying, "Dude, what are you thinking? That's ridiculous." He needs one more ingredient for its growth serum, so he ends up going to another town where it's supposed to be the sap from this trees. So he ends up spending all of his money selling every possession he has to try to make it to get this sap to finish his serum. He goes to the town. It says, when he arrived in Europe, I headed straight for the region of the Krakow trees. So that's where he needs to get the sap. He's in town. He sees this castle up on the hill, and he decides, that's where I'm going to go. That's kind of near the trees. I'm going to go hang out up there. It's abandoned. Perfect. I'll go do some experiments up there. Great. He goes up there. He finds a caretaker named Ludwig. He's still there. He's hanging out. So he kind of recruits him to help create this serum and build his lab and everything like that. So they finally get the serum perfected, and the professor thinks, I'm kind of done for the night. I'm going to go hang out in bed, take it easy, Ludwig. Ludwig, like, he's kind of been out of shape because he feels so bad because people have always left him, and he's like, this serum will make the professor a very rich man, but Ludwig will get nothing from it unless I steal this formula and sell it myself. Yes, this is my chance to become rich. But first, I must make sure the serum works. I'll use it on one of the smallest insects, an ant. So he ends up pouring an excessive amount of the serum on this ant. And this ant's growing bigger and bigger. It's big as a dog, big as a horse, big as an elephant. It keeps growing and growing and growing. He knocks Ludwig down the stairs. This big ant crashes into the professor's room. And now the ant can talk. And the serum has given him the capability to speak and be excessively smart. And he's like, I am Krang the Mighty. Your serum made me grow, made my brain greater than any humans. Now I want the formula. I want to make more serum. I want to give the insects of the world over. We shall rise and conquer you, puny humans. We shall be the masters of the world. So as Krang is chasing the professor down, trying to get the serum, and the professor grabs the last little bit of serum and takes off from the castle. The ant's still chasing him, but the ant figures out he figured he got so smart. What am I doing? I can create this serum myself. So the ant's going back to the castle and creating its own serum. And this is the part that got me, and I busted up laughing at this story. How did they dispatch of this giant ant? So there he is right here. There's that giant ant right there. He's crashing through the building. I mean, it's massive. So how does this professor, figure out how to take care of this ant that's running amok everywhere and planning on taking over the world? Well, he uses his growth serum on a giant anteater. What else? That to me was absolutely ridiculous, funny. I didn't see it coming, and it was just a great little twist at the end. The only thing is, he added one more ingredient, which the serum only lasted an hour. So the anteater was only big enough for an hour to take on the ant and destroy the ant. But who would have thought making a giant anteater to dispatch of the giant ant? I think, I said this is a reprint from Journey to Mystery number 60, which was late 50s, early 60s. So this was right after that nuclear age where all the movies were giant bugs and giant everything else. And that's where it definitely feels that from right there. But it was a great story, great fun on that one. So those are the books that I read for the Halloween Rewind issue. And I wanted to talk about my top 5 Halloween movies and which ones do I want to put them in order? I don't know if I want to put them in order. Maybe I'll just talk about them and go from that. So first one is, now it's not really a scary movie. It's just a Halloween movie. One I watch every single year. I think it came out in 1992, 93, right around there. And it's actually more of a kid's movie than it is an adult movie. And that is Hocus Pocus. It's just I think it's just a fun movie. I just enjoy it. I remember watching as a kid. I remember wanting to be Max. Was it Max? Was the brother's name? I think Max was the older brother's name. I wanted to be Max because he got the good-looking girl at the end. He was trying to impress her. He was kind of awkward, but I absolutely loved that movie as a kid. And I watch it every year. Even this year, I watched it without my daughter. I figured she'd want to watch it with me, but nope, she didn't want to watch it. So I sat down and watched Hocus Pocus all by myself. So next, this is actually a whole series of movies, but Better Than a Giant Spider. That ending is hilarious. Thank you, Mango Bed. It was freaking hilarious. Next movie, like I said, it's actually more of a series of movies, and so I think I was kind of young when the first one came out, but as they went along, I got into my teens. I started to go back and watch all the movies in this run, and that is Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger. I was a huge Freddy Krueger fan growing up. I think I had a Freddy Krueger poster on my wall. I think my favorite one was Dream Warriors, and it's probably so cheesy now if I go back and watch it, just because they had kind of like the comic book guy in there, and Freddy Krueger's one-liners were the best. You couldn't really beat those. It's far better than the Friday 13th, I thought, or Michael Myers, because Freddy could talk, and he could quip those one-liners out there. Scrawny little meatball, and he'd stab little meatball sausage dude on the pizza. One guy turned into a roach and was trapped in a roach motel. Just really stuff that Jason, or Michael Myers couldn't really do. I thought that's what kind of brought me to that series, and I thought it was really fun. Now, I have not watched the remake, so I don't know what that's like at all. So, because I don't know. Robert Englund, somebody else portraying Freddy Krueger's kind of hard for me to swallow. Because for me, Freddy Krueger is always Robert Englund. So that's why Nightmare on Elm Street's in there. I don't have anything to drink tonight. Next movie came out late 80s, I think. If I remember, I should have wrote the dates down or years they came out. And that is Evil Dead 2. If you haven't seen Evil Dead 2, I don't know where you're going. I mean, that's just as campy as it can be, as gory as it can be, as funny as it can be. It's just an overall great horror comedy movie. So cheesy. The special effects. I mean, some of the special effects are good. Some of the practical effects are really good, and some of them are really, really bad. Bruce Campbell's character has some great one-liners in that movie too. Just the whole scenes of. I remember watching it. I mean, the scene that was that really stands out in my mind when the Necronomicon, a book of the dead, it's bound in human flesh, inked in blood, got pulled down to the cellar, and he has to go down to the cellar to retrieve the book or parts of the book because it got ripped apart. And his friends upstairs are listening to the tape that the man had left in the cabin. And as that tape's running, and he's talking about having to kill his wife, and he buried her in the cellar. God forbid I buried her in the cellar, and he's down there trying to find that book. This hearing that and seeing that where it's kind of dark and everything. But what other movie can the guy lop his hand off and make a chainsaw fit to use as a weapon? That's good storytelling, as far as I'm concerned. So Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, the follow-up to that was really good too. I like that one, but I think Evil Dead 2 definitely is a better movie. The other scene I do like is when he falls in the cabin. He's kind of losing his mind at this point. He falls in the cabin and he hears a noise. He looks up and he sees the deer head on the wall. Crank to look at him and start busting up laughing. And all the books are laughing at him. The lamp's laughing at him. Everything's laughing at him because he fell on his ass. It's kind of creepy, good, funny movie. Evil Dead 1, I think, was trying to be too serious. Evil Dead 2 definitely fit within that comedy horror things that I do like. And I said Army of Darkness did too, but I think Evil Dead 2 beats out Army of Darkness for me. Number 4, The Frighteners. I thought that was a great movie. I mean, it was one of Michael Keaton's last movies I think he did. I think he may have done one or two after that. But I just thought the concept of that was really great. I think Robert Zemeckis was the director on that one. And there were quite a bit of funny scenes in that too. And the whole movie, I think, is great. We had that crazy FBI agent, Nazi guy that was chasing him. You knew something was messed up with him when he had to have the donut for his hemorrhoids, and all that fun stuff. And it was just I think a fun and a little bit scary movie. Not a whole lot scary, but just a little bit. But it came out at a time where there weren't a whole lot of those kind of movies out, I don't think. At least that one really stood out for me. Just being able to use the ghost that kind of connected with him to help investigate, or actually not help investigate, help fraud other people to get money. They'd come in and make things in a room move around, the bed spin around, and use their help in order to con people out of money. But it turned into something a little bit different as the story progressed. And I mean, it's just a fun movie. The killer, who you think is a killer is not the killer kind of thing. And it kind of has that twist on it. So the Screwhead edition. I don't know what that is. Thank you, Zclex says, hey, what's up, to stopping by to show some love while I edit my video. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Mastodon says, the Screwhead edition, is that one of the editions off Frighteners by chance, like a special limited edition one? Not sure on that, but and the last movie, I actually haven't seen it in a few years, but it stands out in my mind so much because it came out mid to late 80s, and I remember watching it relatively young, and it's scaring the living crap out of me. It's not a Halloween movie. It's just more of an alien movie than it is anything else. And I think what scared me the most of it were the practical effects in the movie. And you may already know what movie I'm talking about. It has Kurt Russell in it, and that is The Thing. Good God, that movie scared the crap out of me as a kid. The one scene, Army of Darkness. the one scene that really freaked me out as a kid. There were a couple scenes that really freaked me out as a kid. First one is when the one guy has a heart attack and they go to paddle, give him paddle to kind of get his heart back normal. And the doctor goes to press the paddles on, and his chest opens up, and this is a cavity full of teeth, and bites the doctor's arm off. And then his neck stretches out into a spider thing that scurries across the floor. God, being 10 years old and watching that screwed me up. That's for sure. The other scene that was great, that had a lot of tension in it, was they find out that every single little aspect of the alien, or who the alien is kind of pretending to be, because he's taken over essentially their body, I guess, is where they draw the blood off of everybody, have everybody tied down, and they draw the blood, and they're taking a hot wire to the blood because that affects the alien creature. And that whole scene is just absolutely crazy too. And then it ends off with such a cliffhanger that you don't know what's happening. I mean, I'm assuming both the guys died who were at the end of the movie, because one, they didn't have any shelter in the middle of freaking a snowstorm out in the Antarctic, I think. And so you don't know how they survived. But yeah, I remember watching that thing as a kid, and whew. Yeah, I know I had the original film. It was a remake. I know that. I don't think I've ever seen the original one. I think I watched a little bit of the remake, but I just couldn't get into it. So the thing is, those are my top 5 movies that scary movies I absolutely love. Frighteners, Hocus Pocus, Evil Dead #2, The Thing, and Nightmare on Elm Street. So what I want to know is, what do you guys do for Halloween? Do you guys go, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have kids. You go trick-or-treating? Do you stay at home, hand out candy? Do you go to a party? Do you just sit down and watch movies all the time? What are your top 5 horror movies that you like to watch? I mean, it doesn't even have to be around Halloween time. You just like to watch horror movies, and that's your thing. Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you come by and check us out this Friday night. Well, we're on Friday night. God, I am so out of it. We used to go live on Friday nights. On Sunday night, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern, on the Blasted or Stash It show, where we review all of our books for the week. And it's just me, it's Bookend Joe, it's Spectacular Spider Grandpa, sometimes Drew Manchu. Paul's kind of going through a whole bunch of personal stuff right now, but it's definitely going to be Joe and myself reviewing the books that came out today. So make sure you come by and check us out then on Sunday. So thanks everybody for watching my Halloween Rewind show, and we'll catch you later, guys. Let's do the spooky thing again. Spooky.